Welcome back to another food vlog about what we ate. Paris was incredible, and if you haven't watched our travel vlog, make sure to check it out. But for now, I'm going to talk you through all the amazing things that we ate on our trip. Day one in the city, and we're checking into our Airbnb, which was such a beautiful Parisian apartment, complete with an English short-haired cat called Solomon, who after a little persuasion came out from under the bed to greet us. After unpacking, we headed towards the river, first exploring the Printemps Mall rooftop, which has fantastic views of the city, and walking all the way to the area with the Louvre Museum. Now, to kickstart what we ate, we were quite peckish heading back to our Airbnb in the area of the 10th, which in general was a fantastic area to find really nice restaurants and bars. We came across this Turkish kebab shop called Erzurum, and I had this really nice Turkish flatbread with a mix of lamb and chopped cooked Not veg. Very French, I know, but it was a nice snack before we would head back into the busy touristy area near the Arc de Triomphe. In this area, we know that there is one of the famous L'Entrecôte restaurants where they serve steak frites, which is quite simply a thin steak with these amazing French-style thin and crispy fries with sauce. As you can see, there was a massive queue. Is it worth it?
Not in this one. We need to go to the other one, where probably the queue is going to be the same, if not worse.
So we headed towards the second branch, only to find that there was an even larger queue, which kind of messed up our dinner plans for that evening, considering everything else in that area was also fully booked. So instead, we thought we'd jump on a Lime bike and cycle towards the Eiffel Tower.
It should sparkle in 15
After exploring the surrounding area, we found a really nice bistro called Francoise. We ordered 2 glasses of French red wine and for starters a plate of escargot. Now, we found this device to eat the snails very tricky, and mine actually twisted out of my hands and splattered the oil all over my new shirt, which was not the best. But thankfully the snails tasted amazing. And for our main, we would have a rump steak, medium rare, sliced in front of us with some greens and the classic French sauce, which I believe is kind of an egg yolk mustard sauce. But the star of the show were these potato croquettes, which were melt in your mouth, so soft and gooey. They were definitely the star of the show. And in general, this place was a fantastic way to start a Parisian food experience. On our way back to the Airbnb, we also wanted to try some freshly made crepes. We eagerly watched as the man made it on the stove. I went for the strawberries and Nutella, and Danny for the banana. Day 2, we planned a pretty packed day. After window shopping the bakery just outside our apartment, we jumped on the metro towards the Notre Dame Cathedral. Today we plan to explore south of the river and also the Latin Quarter with the Pantheon. But first we wanted to visit a very special bakery which had been awarded the best croissant in Paris, which we needed to wait in a queue for around 15 minutes before we could even get a peek at what they had on offer. Let's see if this croissant lives up to its reputation.
So they basically won Best Croissant, rebranded entirely just because they won for 1 year the Best Croissant. Well, we need to try it. different than others though, it's very crispy. It's not your casual croissant. So nice.
This is how I expect a croissant to look, I think. Yeah, I love that butter. Butter taste. Butter taste. Croissant. After exploring the surrounding area, we jumped back on the metro and headed towards a very special historical cafe that opened in 1885, a place that Danny's father recommended that we go since it's such a historical marvel. The cafe is called The Two Magicians and has hosted countless historical individuals over the years. We grabbed a coffee and we were keen to try the croque monsieur and the croque madame, which are these lovely cheesy sandwiches with ham inside. The dish seemed really simple, however it felt like the cafe had perfected them over the years. Even the salad and its very simple French dressing tasted really fresh and complemented the richness of the sandwiches. After more exploring, we found ourselves in a chocolate shop buying a box of macaroons. There was an Egyptian pharaoh sculpture made entirely out of chocolate in this store. Afterwards, we found a local cafe called the American Cafe, where we would have a quick break with some tea, and I was able to try my first macaroon. They're okay, nothing special, but they obviously look really pretty. It was really difficult not to shop the whole time while we were in Paris. With such amazing department stores, we kept finding ourselves inside, like this one called the Samaritain. This afternoon we wanted to do grocery shopping since it was actually Christmas Eve and we anticipated a lot of shops would be closed on Christmas Day. We visited the local fresh grocery shops near our Airbnb and grabbed €17 worth of fresh fruit from oranges, apples, pears, tomatoes, really nice looking veg, which we could make a salad from using the fennel and radish and chicory. Everything in this store was completely plastic free, and with the amount that we bought only costing €17 was amazing. Next, we would head to a really nice cheese shop called Taka and Vermo, where there was quite a long queue with people obviously shopping for their Christmas Day cheeses. We waited in line before grabbing two specialty cheeses, both a soft brie with nuts on top, but one apparently had a fig inside. We also considered getting the blue cheese as it looked amazing, but I'm dairy intolerant, so it wasn't really a good idea.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a lovely day. Merry Christmas.
After securing the cheese, we wondered if we should buy some oysters too, since there was this fresh seafood shop, but felt like it might be a bit tricky to get them open the next day on our own. This bakery that we visited continuously on our trip, called Urban Bakery, had so many nice fresh breads and pastries. The woman was probably sick of us by the end of the week, but they told us they'd be open tomorrow, so we decided to leave that for the morning and head into the Monoprix supermarket to grab some more essentials like Prosecco, wine and snacks. Over the road we found a really nice butcher's. We could see and smell the most amazing chicken rotisserie. And inside, Danny discussed with the owner which foie gras to purchase. One was made with goose, which was well over €100, and another was made with duck, costing around €30. I'll let you guess which one we bought. We also grabbed a really nice meat pastry, which tasted so good, and we headed back to our Airbnb to deposit it all in the fridge with a quick cuddle from the cat. That evening we headed into the Montmartre area, where you'll find the Moulin Rouge, and headed up to the iconic steps of Rue Fortier, which were used to film the famous fight scene in John Wick. And at the top sits the Basilica of Sacré-Cœur. This beautiful and busy area on the higher ground had a lot of restaurants and bars, but we couldn't really tell before that it was quite a touristy area, and the place that we had reserved was pretty basic and a bit of a tourist trap. But we still went inside the place. It was called Chez Eugene, and the menu was pretty limited, so we just went for a basic burger.
Merci. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Au revoir. Oh, nice.
Day 3, and actually Christmas Day, we started our day right with some almond croissants from our local bakery. We also grabbed some fresh baguettes for later on, which were still hot from the oven. We planned to walk towards the river and experience all the beautiful architecture along the way, whilst indulging in those freshly baked croissants. After hitting all of the tourist spots, including the Eiffel Tower again, and cycling towards and around the Arc de Triomphe, we headed back to our Airbnb to start cooking for our afternoon meal. The next day was our museums day, and of course we picked up some butter croissants to enjoy once we arrived at our first stop, which was the Palais de Tokyo. And after realising the later opening times, we actually headed towards our next stop, which was the Musée d'Orsay, one of Paris's most visited museums. For lunch, we went to a casual bistro called Café Le Moliere, which caught our eye because we saw that they were selling fresh oysters. We were also keen to try French onion soup, as we'd seen a lot of cafes nearby serving it. We questioned the bread on top of the soup with the grated cheese, as we felt like it got a bit soggy when you left the soup, and we weren't so impressed by this dish in general. But we really enjoyed our first taste of these French fries, which were so crispy and nice. After more art and culture back at the Palais de Tokyo, we would then head for dinner to a very special restaurant with a lot of reviews, a place called Chez Savy. This was in quite a touristy area, so we were unsure about the hype of this restaurant, and at first they seated us in a really awkward table and we were not too impressed. But we would later forgive and forget once the food started coming out. We shared the bone marrow, which was the largest portion of bone marrow I've ever been served, as well as for me trying frog's legs for the first time. They tasted amazing. Danny went for the duck dish, which was accompanied by a side of buttery, herby potatoes, and I went for the smoked haddock in this white creamy jus, which was falling apart in my mouth. Both our mains were cooked so delicately, and we couldn't resist also having the creme brulee for pudding. Day 5 in Paris was our planned shopping day, and we skipped breakfast and just had a really good coffee before walking and shopping for hours in Paris's best areas. For lunch, we found ourselves in an area full of Asian restaurants, and the smell of the food drew us in. We stopped at a place called Yaoji Noodles, which I think specialised in Sichuan Chinese cuisine. I went for the aubergine and pork mince stir fry, and Danny went for a big bowl of pork noodles with a raw egg on top, with lots of onion and peanuts. We also shared pork dumplings. This food was really tasty, and it had been a while since we ate Chinese food, albeit in Paris. It's nice to see that the city has so many good food options. After hours of more shopping, the sun started to set and we were forced to end our shopping day. Not before heading to a really trendy pasta place next to our Airbnb called Fellows. The place was quite loud but vibey, and the pasta was so delicious. We shared a white truffle pasta with mushrooms and a beef ragu topped with lots and lots of grated parmesan. Day 6 was in fact our last day in Paris, but we ended with some amazing brunch. We made sure to grab around €30 worth of croissants and fresh bread from that favourite bakery before we headed back to the train station and home. Let us know if you've been to any of these places or plan to go for your next trip to Paris, and I hope this foodie vlog has inspired you and given you some great options to visit for your next trip to Paris. See you in the next one!